And it's an exciting day. I'm launching a somewhat new podcast. It's an idea I've had for a while. It's an idea that spun off from when I did a one-on-one interview with Morgan Moose Wright from American Ninja Warrior as part of the Waterman and D-Train show. But that show's a show of different character, has a different audience, and not everybody wants to hear positive stuff. And so I'm kind of launching this Fail to Fail podcast where I sit down and interview people that I feel have made a success from their life despite their bringing up, despite maybe their education or their past history. And as I was thinking about doing this podcast and trying to figure out the first person to bring on, an associate of mine that I haven't seen in quite a few years, he was part of my Dollar Bowl Night League, a gentleman named Mike Frenchko. Mike, how you doing today, fella?
Doing really good.
Pull right on up to that microphone. Get right on up on it. Almost like you want to kiss it. There you go.
Like that?
Yep. How you been, fella?
Been really good.
Good to hear. Now, we're going to get into your story here momentarily.
All right.
I hope you're good with talking about everything, so let's just get right to it. I want to kill the background music. I just threw this podcast together. I literally created a half-ass logo 3 minutes ago so that I have something to put on the internet with it. I have no theme song. This is the first episode. We're coming right out the gate. So, Mike, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Pelican Street.
Pull that microphone in a little bit closer to you. Just the whole, there you go.
Right there?
Yep.
Awesome. I grew up on Pelican Street in Cape Coral, born Fort Myers Hospital.
Fantastic. What was life in Cape? You said Fort Myers, Cape Coral.
Cape Coral.
What was life in Cape Coral like back then?
Slow.
Slow.
Yeah, very slow.
Now I know when I moved back down here, I moved down here originally. I never left, but when I moved down here in 2004, it was kind of a sleepy town. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot of things going on. There surely wasn't the amount of entertainment venues, things going on that we have now as far as concerts and things to do. What did you do to occupy your time when you weren't in school?
Drugs, gangs, violence.
How early in your life did you get involved with the drugs and the gangs?
11.
11.
Yep.
Well, what was it? A national gang or was it just a little Cape Coral gang? Something that
Just a little Cape gang.
Yeah.
Me and my boys.
Just running around, tearing shit up,
That's
breaking
it.
into cars, spray painting.
Never broke into cars, never broke into houses, just fighting people and just running the streets.
Running the streets, just full-blown debauchery.
That's it.
What was your drug of choice back then?
11 was marijuana, and then getting into like 14, 15, started getting into the coke and the ecstasy, and then the meth, and then the molly, and then turned into the heroin. And
So you went full-blown all the way down to with the H. Now, were you
yeah.
snorting it or shooting it?
I was shooting it three to 5 times a day at one point.
As a teenager?
No, not as a teenager. That got into my later years.
Now, while you were doing all this during your childhood and your teenage years, how did this affect I'm assuming you're probably a pretty crappy student at that point, right?
Straight F's.
Straight F's?
0.7 GPA up until 10th grade where I got expelled.
You got expelled and that was it?
Yeah.
Now, did you ever go back and get your GED?
I did. Not my GED. I went and sat for the diploma, and I just took it without studying. I just went and took it and passed it the first time.
So that just goes to show you that once your head is clear and you have your faculties about you, that you're smart enough to, sit down unprepared, untested, just sit down and pass the equivalency exam, just boom, gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now you got expelled after high school. Not after high school, you got expelled in 10th grade. Where did your life take you after that point? What were you doing for a living? Where were you living? Were you just spending your days partying? What was your daily existence like?
So, 15, I got expelled and started working at Target and just getting into trouble, still running the streets. Then, 18, I started working for the city because you had to be 18. And I was just like, man, there's nothing here. It's not what I wanted to do, and I had nothing else to do. So I was like, military. Let's try that.
So, but you were able, even without it. Well, actually, you did sit down and get your high school diploma. What were you doing for the city?
The water.
Okay.
Like putting in sewer lines. And,
okay.
The city water stuff.
Sure. And so you were bored with that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure the pay wasn't that great. You're out working in a hot ass sun. You're working underground.
Yep.
Covered in sand.
Yep.
Covered in dead lizards.
Yep.
Everything else. So what branch of the military did you go into?
Army.
Army. Now, at this point, obviously, there's drug testing involved with your entrance into the Army. So how long or how were you able to get clean before enlisting into the Army?
That's the only thing I could do with my life, so it was either quit smoking and quit doing the drugs or not, or else I wasn't going to get in. So I stopped everything.
And so the hard life of reality is like, okay, I got a high school diploma because I showed up and I cleaned up long enough to get that done. But I'm still no college degree, really no external tradable skills per se. Definitely don't want to be climbing around underground in the hot Florida heat all the time. And so my choices are continue down this road or join the military.
That was it.
And so you stayed clean long enough to pass the exams. I'm sure you went and got some different beverages that help purify your system and clean you out and, and all that nonsense. You're surfing the internet, seeing how long it takes and what you got to do. And so you joined the Army. Now, when you got into the Army, was boot camp a shock for you, or were you kind of prepared before you went? Did you have other friends who had enlisted in the military at some point?
It wasn't a shock. I really enjoyed like physical activity, so that part of it was fun. The bullying aspect of it was a shock because I figured that all of us coming together as one whole unit to fight for our country, it wouldn't be like that. But I mean, I dealt with bullying from first grade on, and it was no different.
So throughout the ranks, actually in boot camp, the other guys you were there with, they all still formed their own little cliques and all the same nonsense that you had been dealing with?
My whole life kept dealing with it.
But I'm sure at that point, with your history of being involved in gangs and violence, did you, since you joined the military as a transformation in your livelihood, were you able to keep your temper in check, or did you kind of get into some trouble while in boot camp? Did you ever let the other recruits' negativity get to you in any way?
So I grew up in, when I was 8, I got beat up really bad, and my dad put me in MMA, karate, and mixed martial arts, so I trained for 10 years before I joined the military.
Okay.
My philosophy was I never threw a punch unless they threw it first.
Sure.
And I lived that way for the rest of my life. So I always got picked on because I was very sensitive. So they would pick on me, and I'd end up crying, and it just turned into something completely different than what it's originally started off as. And I got into like 1-2 fights in boot camp, but it was because they put their hands on me first. Now,
you said your father, after you took a severe whooping from someone else in the community, your father enlisted you into some different martial arts. Is that where your life habits of physical fitness got involved too? Were you hitting the gym as well, or were you just doing the going to the classes?
Just going to the classes, just training, but I was also playing baseball, soccer, running track. My dad was an athlete, so he trained us. Okay,
so you already had the athletic genes.
Yeah.
Now you got the rudimentary child level martial arts skills. Now you're going off to the military. Now you're learning some real fighting skills.
Combat, yeah.
You're learning the stuff that, to defend yourself and more. Now, where did you get, who were you stationed with? Where did you go after boot camp?
After boot camp, I went to Fort Stewart, Georgia. It was right outside of Hinesville by Savannah.
And who were you assigned to?
Tuskers, 423rd Battalion.
And what was your job?
Forward observer. We were basically artillery. We would go in first, scope out the scene, see what needed to be done, and then the infantry would come in behind us, so we were attached to an infantry unit.
Well, forward observer, that's not a position that to be taken lightly. I mean, you have more people's well-being in your hands, and you also have to take special training for that. Now, when you're in boot camp or post-boot camp, and you got assigned to be a forward observer, and you went to take your classes, because you got to be able to read a map, you got to be able to call in, so many clicks left to the right and all that. Now you're clean, now you're sober for the first time since you're 11, 12. Were you surprised on how easily the schooling came to you and how well you understood it and retained it, or did you still have kind of a problem because of your poor past school history?
For me, it wasn't a problem only because my dad had us reading maps at a young age, driving through the country. We would take road trips every summer in between schools, so he had me reading the maps. So I got familiar with reading maps at a young age.
So it's probably when you went through boot camp and took your initial testing that when you did the small little section on map reading skills, they saw that you had a gift for that and knew that you would probably be good for the forward observer position.
Mm-hmm.
And did you ever get deployed anywhere? Were you stateside most of the time?
I was stateside because I actually started taking pain pills in boot camp.
Really?
Yeah, they did surgery on my mouth. They removed 4 of my wisdom teeth,
Okay.
and they gave me codeine, and that was the first time I tried that, and that was it from there.
So you basically gotten yourself off of drugs, cleaned up,
Mm-hmm.
thought you were going the right direction. You're like, military's the place for me, man. We're better to stay off of drugs and keep my nose clean, but then you have a standard dental procedure, and now you find yourself addicted to codeine.
Yeah.
So did you you stayed stateside? Did you end up getting honorably discharged, or did you get in trouble and get kicked out of the military? Were you did your 4 years and left? How did the military play out for you?
So I had that surgery, and then once I got out from boot camp and got to my station duty, they did surgery on my left knee and gave me more pain pills.
Fun.
And then I just went back, and because I wanted more, I was like, oh, well, I have heartburn. And they did another surgery, gave me more pain pills. And then I was like, after those ran out, I was like, oh, my shoulder hurts. And they did surgery on my shoulder. And gave
So
me
you're
more.
essentially pill chasing
Oh, yeah.
on a military base.
Oh, yeah. As soon as they did that surgery on my mouth and gave me those, I was like, all right, I want these.
So you're now, would you say you have an addictive personality?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Completely.
Anything you get involved with, you whole hog.
That's it. I'm full in or full out.
Well, the good thing is that if you take that energy and that addictive personality and you figure out a way to channel it and aim it at something positive, that's a great aspect to have in your life.
Definitely.
But it is so easy to take that addictive personality and just pick up on any little bad thing, whether it's women, drugs, alcohol, gambling.
Yep.
I mean, and some of the biggest problems people have is that addictive personality. And I have one too. You know, growing up, I started skateboarding in 3rd grade. I hit it hard, hit it every day up until I was 21. Snowboarding, same way. As you can see, the World War II stuff, you're surrounded by it.
Yep.
Everything I get involved, podcasting, now I'm hosting my 3rd podcast. So anything I get involved with, my work, I'm a workaholic. I work nonstop. And no lie, you know, growing up as a teenager, we all did the party and stuff, and you know, the addictive personality held me back there for the longest time. I didn't get my head out of my ass until I was in my early 30s. And so one of the hardest things for people to do is to find something positive to point that addictive laser at, to attach it onto. And one of the other things that it's really beneficial in your life and in mine most recently is fitness and working out. If you have that addictive personality, and if you can make it past that 21 days, that's when you form that habit or break that habit, forget about it. It's all somewhat easier. And it just helps you get there and it helps you keep going. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So now you're pill chasing, you're doctor shopping
Yep.
on military bases. At what point did they finally just discharge you?
So in 2007, my wife left me for my best friend with my month-old daughter.
That's nice.
Yeah. And
Now looking back on it, can you... Well, I guess the first question is, was the best friend a more stable, harder working person, or was he kind of the same personality defects that you had?
same thing.
So it wasn't a step up. It wasn't something that she did in her mind to provide a better future for the child. It was just kind of a lateral move.
Yeah, he was lying to her and filling all these, just telling her a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
And he got what he wanted, and he left her 3 weeks later. Yeah.
And so now you're divorced.
Now I am, yeah.
You have at the time, a pill addiction.
Yep.
And I'm assuming when you came home and the free world opened back up to you, that pill addiction probably led you back down to some of the paths that you had ventured on as a child.
Oh, yeah.
So what were you doing from the time you left the military up until the time we'll call your life transformation, where you finally found a way, the hard way, but you found a way to point your laser of addictive personality to positive things? What were you doing during that time span?
Trying to kill myself completely. I was doing anything I could just to numb the pain of life.
Self-medication?
That's it. Coke, meth, Molly, whatever I could, you know.
And kind of in the psychological realm and in the screwed up way that people tend to think, especially those who are on hard drugs, your wife leaving you, taking the kid, that probably provided a good, healthy excuse to condone your behavior. Because, with most addicts, you'll find whether it's something huge and traumatic or something minor that happened in their childhood, one of the key components to being an addict is having an excuse. Finding something to blame so that yes, and internally when you're sober or you're waking up in the morning and you're reevaluating your life before you go out and do it all over again, you kind of look at yourself in the mirror and realize you call you on your own bullshit. But when it comes up the time to re-upping, you love to have that excuse, the reason, oh man, I can't believe this happened, so and so let's just ride that train again.
Oh yeah.
And so this went on for how many years?
2005 to 2015.
Now, during this time, were you able to at least maintain a semblance of a job to at least afford rent? Where were you staying at? I mean, how were you managing the daily survival skills that we all need to move on and that we require?
From 2000 when I got home from the military in 2008, I was staying with my parents at our original house that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were also hooked on pain pills because my dad got injured, but my dad's ex-mafia, so he was also running drugs, and my mom was hooked on pain pills and she was getting all that stuff, so I was staying with them. But it was just bad because when I ran out, they had it and they provided everything.
Sure, I mean, you're basically living at a pharmacy.
That's
and
it.
Now that we know a little bit about what your father's past was, it's not too much of a reach to see why your childhood you did the things you did, because I'm sure violence wasn't exactly frowned upon in that sort of environment, let alone the drugs and the things of that. You probably got an attaboy every once in a while from beating someone's ass coming home.
From my mom, no. My dad always told me to defend myself, but I'd come home. Me and my dad were 12 years old, and we're throwing hands at each other. He hit me in the head with a 45-pound weight one time, and so it was a very violent household. Very drug-addicted household.
And so here you are. You're basically living in a pharmacy because once again, once your prescription ran out and you got to wait for that renewal, you had somewhere to fall back onto.
Oh yeah.
And so you have a bed to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
Your child has been taken away from you.
Yep.
And so you really didn't have a whole hell of a lot of responsibilities. Your key responsibility is coming up with enough beer money and drug money and figuring out what the hell we're doing this weekend.
That was it.
And so you would spend your time, I know you spent a lot of time downtown Fort Myers. That's where I first met you.
Every night.
And then we share a common group of friends. And then as we said at the beginning of the show, you and I used to bowl together during my dollar bowl nights before the fine All-Star Lanes burnt down.
Mm-hmm.
But then one day you disappeared. And then I got the news. I think it was New Year's Eve.
Yep.
What happened? I know you blacked out through most of it, but what happened? What year and what New Year's Eve and what happened?
So after I stopped the pain pills in 2013 because I met this girl and Jade.
Mm-hmm.
She told me that if I cared about her, then I would stop those stuff because she didn't like how it made me, and I cared about her and I stopped everything. But I stopped the pain pills and I started drinking.
Doubled down on the alcohol?
Yeah, that was it,
And more liquor than beer.
Oh yeah. I carry a beer, but it was all shots. That's all it was. It was just, so got heavy into that, got fired from every job, from Dixie for getting drunk and flicking cigarettes in my boss's face, and got fired from Catch 22 for being drunk and punching one of the computer screens because I didn't like what someone said to me. And
so here you are, you have an addictive personality, you fancy hard liquor,
Yep.
You're recently off the pills,
Yep.
You have a bit of a temper problem,
Oh yeah.
but you work in bars.
Yeah.
That's a good way to make all of your life habits and bad decision making work out.
Oh yeah.
And working at bars, I mean, it's all cash.
Cash, money, women, drugs.
Everything. It's the rock and roll without the stage.
That was it.
And you were just living it up. I mean, you're physically fit.
Mm-hmm.
You're out partying.
Yep.
You're almost the Mike the Situation of Fort Myers back in 2014. I mean, you're just down there doing it up and just living the life. But as you stated earlier, you're honestly just trying to kill yourself. You're just burying demons.
I went to the hospital in March of 13 because I actually drank so much, I actually had to leave the Buddha bar in an ambulance.
Wow.
And then went out the next night and kept drinking.
just time to re-up.
That was it.
Second round, let's go.
I'm going to kill myself eventually, you know. But, so, New Year's, I was bartending downtown.
You actually got a job back somewhere?
No.
Finally give you a third chance?
No, Ray from Indigo, he would call me up occasionally for big events.
Mm-hmm.
Call me up, and I was like, yeah, sure. So I started drinking at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Crown Apple. Didn't eat nothing.
Oh, I love
Wasn't
Crown
drinking
Royal
water.
Regal Apple. Oh, forget about it.
That was my drink.
It's like liquid Jolly Ranchers.
That's it.
It's so good. And that's the last thing you want if you're an alcoholic with anger issues, is something that you can drink like liquid Jolly Ranchers.
And it tasted so good.
Oh, it's so good.
I just kept drinking that. I think I went through a whole bottle before 6.
Wow.
And just
this
kept,
is New Year's Eve, so
New
you got a
Year's
long
Eve.
way to go.
Yeah. Blacked out at like 7. And then, so the other bartender and I had this agreement because Ray was trying to take all our tip money.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to pocket the cash, pocket the tips, and then at the end of the night split it up. So I filled up my pocket first, and then she filled up, and then I filled up again. And as the night got further into it, she and I got a little more drunk, and she said I was stealing all her tip money. And then she told security. Security came over, and then a scuffle broke out, and then next thing I know, I'm in the back of a cop car, so full of rage, I literally smashed my head into the back of the plexiglass and cracked my head open. I had to go to the hospital, get 11 staples.
I've seen that. My ex-stepfather, who was a former Marine and alcoholic, I watched him actually. Granted, this is back in the mid-'90s, so perhaps the plexiglass wasn't as stable as it is now. Maybe it was the demo version, but I actually watched him crack one of those with his forehead one time.
I hit it a couple times, too. I remember that.
And so now you're in the back of a squad car, you're blacked out, your wig split,
Yep.
you're bleeding all over the place.
Yep.
And then what happens?
They pull me out of the cop car and start beating me and punching me in the side. Ended up with some broken ribs, 2 black eyes, a busted nose. Went to the hospital, got the staples. They threw me in a cell, and I thought I was going to die.
Which is kind of what you've been looking for the whole time.
Yep.
But now that you're looking down at face to face, were you like, this isn't what I want? Or were you like, bring it on?
I didn't even know at the time. I was just so
blacked
out of it. Yeah, I was just so out of it. Then they put me in the medical wing because they were like, oh, we can't keep this kid in the cell by himself. He's going to die.
Yeah.
So they put me in the medical wing. And then they put me in solitary confinement. And the Bible ended up in my cell with me. And I started reading it. I read the New Testament, and I got to Romans 12:2, where it says, don't be conformed by the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And I was like, man, I am so conformed to the world. I am. I'm the spitting image of what the world looks like.
Yeah.
And I was facing 7 years in prison.
Wow. For what?
Assault on a police officer, resisting with violence, battery, and drunken disorderly.
Wow.
And from what I understand, Lee County, they don't play when it comes to stuff like that. Like,
sure.
You mess with the cops, like, there's no second chance you're going.
Yeah.
So
how long were you in jail waiting for your arraignment?
3 months.
You sat in jail for 3 months before your court hearing?
I didn't even have a hearing.
Wow, so much for due process.
I didn't even have a hearing. They came and they said, they told me what I was facing, 7 years. And I was like, okay. Like, I thought I was going to be going to prison for 7 years. And so I'm reading this Bible, and I asked Jesus for help. 3 months go by, and the judge actually sentenced me to go to school instead.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't sentence you to the military. You've already been that route.
That was it.
And so you kind of got an old school judge.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, after sitting and holding for 3 months, they probably saw that, okay, clearly most of this guy's problems was based on the crap that he was hopped up on that night. Because we've had him for 3 months. He hasn't been in any fights. He's probably been I'm just putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming since he assigned you to school, you weren't causing trouble in the jail.
No, I got in trouble.
Did you?
Oh, I got sent to solitary confinement twice.
Intentionally?
No. Just from giving the officers hassles. I got into a scuffle with someone. Yeah.
Now, solitary like it is in the movie where they strip you butt naked and throw you in a concrete room, or do you still have your scrubs on?
I had a scrub on, but I was by myself for 2 months.
Wow.
Just me and the Bible. That's it. And that's the first book I've ever read. 28 years of my life. Never read a book before.
Really?
Yep.
From cover to cover? Well, I mean, prior to this, you never even...
Never picked
other
up
than
a book.
homework? No,
I didn't do homework.
Yeah, you're a straight F student.
Yeah. Like, never, ever picked up a book.
Which, that is a key component for what he's going to talk about here shortly. And part of the reason, because, you know, we've been going at this for 20 minutes now, and everybody's like, why are you talking to this guy who is completely just a huge asshole? He spent his life all drugged up, beating people up. You know, he's pill-popping the military. Now he's beating on police officers. Well, going back to the beginning of this podcast, the whole purpose of this podcast is a motivational podcast about people who dealt with their journey and their struggles in a hard way and somehow figured out ways to find the right path, and that's what we're leading up to. And clearly, you spent 2 months in the hole with nothing but a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably your first glimpse down the correct path?
Yeah. Yep, that was it. I grew up atheist.
Sure.
I hated Christians.
Yeah.
I tried to stab a Christian when I was 15 in church. Like, I kicked out because I tried to stab him.
How did you end up in church when you're fifth? Was it like one of the school-sponsored programs? Did you go with a friend?
I was going to pick up girls.
Yeah.
Being real, like, that's where I was going. I was going to cause trouble and pick up girls. And I did.
You tried to stab somebody with a shank.
I pulled the knife out and literally tried to stab him.
Wow.
Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah. And so, you just spent 2 months in the hole. You spent 7 months in... How long in jail?
3 months.
3 months. So, out of the 3 months, two of it you were in the hole.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, you got a judge who saw something in you.
Yep.
My hypothesis went straight out the window when she said you got put in the hole for fighting. So, but clearly he saw something in you, and he sentenced you to school. Where did you go?
So when I got out, I originally went to FSW,
Mm-hmm.
which I tried to do years prior when I was still taking the pills.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to go to school because I had my GI Bill,
Yeah.
but I couldn't get in because I couldn't pass the test.
Because your mind wasn't right.
Exactly. So this time I went there the first time and I passed the admission test to get in.
Now, does the GI Bill still apply to you? Is there a sunset on that? How does that work?
So right now I'm still collecting my GI Bill.
Okay.
I get paid to go to school,
Sweet.
and they pay me, and they pay for my school.
I just didn't know if the sentencing and the jail time did anything to disrupt your benefits from the military at all.
If I would have been convicted of the felony, then I wouldn't have been able to use my GI Bill. But because of the fact that all the charges got dropped, which is a blessing.
That judge must have been in a good mood.
Yeah.
He must have scored like 5 under par that morning on the golf course or something. I mean, he was just riding high.
Yeah.
Not only did he not sentence you to 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
but he wiped all the charges, I'm assuming, with what they call it, no prejudice.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I had to go to counseling for a year.
Anger management?
Anger management, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, that thing, SWAFIS or...
Yeah, did you do the full 12-step?
No, I didn't do the 12-step. They had me in a 16 or a 8-week program,
Mm-hmm.
but I got busted for drinking.
Okay.
And so they put me from the 8-week, and they added 16 more weeks on to my sentence, which I could have violated probation by that drinking.
Sure.
But I didn't for some reason.
And so now you're going to Florida Southwest College?
Or
was it
there,
Edison
yeah.
back then?
No, it was Florida Southwestern.
Okay, so
2015.
Okay.
Yep. Started there, then did all my prereqs.
What was your at the time, what were you considering for your major?
I had no clue.
You just go on because you had to go.
That was it.
You really didn't have an interest in going, but
Nope.
it beat the hell out of sitting in jail.
Yep.
And so basically you were just getting the prerequisites out of the way.
Yeah, that was it.
And so at what point did you finally... Well, I'll let you tell the story, but so you spent 2 months reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're in college, but once again, your addictive personality, long history of drug abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You're, I'm going to say, about 4 years older than most of your counterparts at that particular school?
FSW, well, I'll be 32 tomorrow, and they were all... So I was 28 at the time. I'd say I was 10 years. 10 to...
And so now you're on a campus with kids 9 to 10 years younger than you.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just out of their parents' houses for the first time.
Yep.
And they only have one thing they're thinking about after class, which is getting women or guys and partying. So, yes, you're going to where you're sentenced to go, but I'm sure if the opportunity arose, that'd be a perfect place to get more pills,
Oh,
go
yeah.
to more parties,
Yep.
and go back down the road that led you to where you were to begin with. How did you keep yourself from making those same poor life choices again?
At first, I was living in a homeless shelter, and for like the first 7 months of school, I was living in a homeless shelter, and they drug test you, and if you got in trouble, like you were out. So I would have been living on the streets. I would have had nowhere to go. My brother had just kicked me out of his apartment because I wouldn't follow his rules and listen to him because he wanted authority and power over me. So
now looking back at it now in your current mind state, do you think it was really a power trip, or do you think he was trying to get you to pull your head out of your ass?
No, it was a power trip.
Power trip?
Yeah. He's my younger brother, and he has grudges against me because of our past.
Mm-hmm.
I was a jerk to him. I treated him like crap.
Sure.
And, he just wanted to have control over me. And when I said I wouldn't listen to his rules, he literally just kicked me out. So.
Now you're sitting in front of me with a More Jesus, Less Me shirt on. Is that what the bottom says?
Yeah.
And a Jesus Saves. So I'm assuming you are a devout Christian. At what point during this journey did you take the Bible that you had read for 2 months into solitary into actually going to a physical church and finding a congregation to join?
When I got sentenced to go to school instead of prison. I should still be in prison for another 3 years. Completely sober.
And so you took the book. You said, I already know what school I'm going to. Now I got to find a church.
Yeah.
Where did you end up going?
I ended up going to First Assembly
of
God in Fort Myers, and at the time I was still struggling with. Actually, I wasn't on probation. I couldn't do anything, so I was completely sober.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I got off probation, though, I went right back to the marijuana.
Sure.
Started smoking again, and when I came to some brothers, and told them what I was struggling with, they said that I was not allowed to talk about it, and I was like, "That's."
I thought I was supposed to be open and honest and.
That's exactly it.
Because after all, those who live in glass houses shouldn't be throwing rocks. Well,
exactly.
If we're tinting the windows on our glass houses and we're not being transparent, then how are we supposed to deal with our problems?
Exactly. And it says in the Word that when you confess your sins, that you'll be forgiven. So I was confessing these things, and they're telling me to hide it, and I was like, well, that goes against what the Bible says. So I really don't want to do that. So I posted something on Facebook, and at the time I was living in an apartment there, and they actually kicked me out of my apartment.
For bad-mouthing them on the internet?
No, for telling people that I struggled with marijuana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, I wasn't bad-mouthing them. I openly confessed that was my struggle at a time.
Sure.
And that's when I became homeless.
Second time?
Second time, yeah. 2 years ago.
And how long were you... Now, when you say you're homeless, were you hidden homeless, or were you sleeping underneath 41 downtown Fort Myers?
Sleeping in my car. Yeah, I slept in my car for about 2 years.
Really?
Yep.
Where does one go to sleep in a car without getting towed or roused by the man?
Walmart. Yeah, Walmart.
Yeah, because that's their policies. You can camp out in their parking lot.
Yeah.
Go in there and get some McDonald's and clean socks.
They didn't mess with you.
The only thing they're missing would be a shower, but I'm sure you can get on a local pilot truck stop and get those.
They have those, yeah.
Yeah. So now you're enlisted. No, you already went in the military. You're enrolled in school. You're trying to find a new church because you're getting a little, I don't know if I want to say disenfranchised, but you're not finding what you believe you should be finding according to the book you're reading.
Yeah.
And you're going to the places that are supposed to go by what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you do now?
So at that time, I started bouncing around, trying to find a place that I felt like they were actually speaking the truth and what it says in the Word and living it. Not just saying this, but doing something different, and being that hypocritical person.
Well, as somebody who's not a hardcore religious person, and take this in the spirit in which it's intended, one of the biggest complaints I had growing up is I had found, at least in my experience, some of the quote-unquote hardest, most religious people were the most openly hypocritical.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and I think, and you could probably agree with this too, because you said you're an atheist growing up, that's probably one of the things that lead people away from religion.
Yep.
And through high school, there was times I would consider myself atheist, but the reason it wasn't because I had anything against anybody else. I didn't like being preached to.
Mm-hmm.
But the irony is nowadays, the 2018 equivalent of an atheist they're just as preachy as some of the most hardcore Bible thumpers.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, well, wait a minute, you're just taking your atheism and turning that into a religion,
Yeah.
and forcing that on other people, thus basically turning yourself into the thing that you were supposed to be rebelling against to begin with. And so it's just everything's just getting crazy now. And so you're trying your damnedest.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to school. What's your grades like now that you're cleaned head and you're focused?
I got a 3.6 GPA over the last 3.5 years. 3.6.
And you're still sleeping in your car, but you're trying to find a new church to go to.
At the time, yeah.
And then I'm assuming at some point you're going to need to find a source of employment.
I was looking, but at the same time I wasn't, because I was getting
The GI money.
The GI money. I was getting a monthly income every month. So I didn't need to. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to live on.
Sure.
Especially me living in my car. I didn't need much.
Yeah.
So I was looking, but at the same time I wasn't. I took a server job, but I got fired for praying for people at work.
Yeah.
I got fired for praying people at work.
I can see how some people might find that a little off-putting, unless, you find out they just spent 4 hours down at the ICU because their mom's on life support. But,
yeah.
Some people are turned off by that. And so, at some point, you find the church you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You find the support you're looking for. And you're going to school, and you're relatively, up to this point, being successful. But from knowing you and seeing your Facebook posts, you start kind of going on little mini missionary trips, if you will, correct? Yeah. You start traveling around the country.
Yep.
Now, were you driving or were you just hitching? I mean, how? Because sometimes you would just end up in some place like, well, how the hell did you get there? I mean, you were just all over the place. You're taking photos. Now, were you going to specific religious outings, or were you just hitting the road and wherever the road took you? What was your plan of attack there?
So, at the end of my associates last year, I was able to take 4 classes online. Okay. So I was still getting my GI Bill, but I didn't have to be in Fort Myers. So I was like, I'm getting ready to go travel the world, but before the world, I want to travel at least the country that I served for.
Sure.
So I was already living in my car at the time, so I'm like, okay, let's just go.
Direct deposit. You got an ATM card.
That was it. So I drove up to Ohio to see my dad, Kentucky.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Buckeye tattoo, because you're born down here.
Yeah. But
you got an Ohio State Buckeye tattoo, and I grew up in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
I left Kentucky in 2nd grade, and I was in Columbus, Ohio from 2nd grade up until the year after I graduated high school. And so I was surprised to see the Buckeye tattoo on your arm, even though you're a cracker.
Yeah.
So how does that work out?
My mom's from Cleveland, my dad's from Warren.
Okay.
They were running from some mafia trouble, and they ended up down here and stayed here. But I grew up a Buckeye fan. We went to Ohio for the summers in between grades.
Go back up to Cleveland?
Cleveland, Warren, Sandusky, Cedar Point, hitting that up.
Thank you for riding Cedar Point, America's roller coaster. The funny thing about that, for those of you who've never been to Cedar Point, because most of us are in Florida, whenever you ride the rides at Cedar Point, at least back in the 90s, the ride people, they didn't have a tape. They would actually say this live. Every time you got the ride, they'd be like, thank you for riding Cedar Point, America's roller coaster. But by the end of the day, they're so damn tired. They'd be like, thank you for riding Cedar Point, America's roller coaster. And I don't know why. I haven't been there in 20 years, but that has always stuck with me. And anytime someone says Cedar Point, I always thank you for riding Cedar Point, America's roller coaster. So your first stop was up in Ohio. You went and you rode the Raptor over at Cedar Point.
Mm-hmm.
And the new drag racer.
That was fun. Oh man!
I had left in Ohio in 2000, so I hadn't yet to been back here. And did you get what you were looking for when you took these trips?
Yes and no. I really just wanted to just get away from here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, get away from here, that's gonna help, but that really didn't.
Yeah.
I was just searching and just trying to find myself.
Because a lot of people associate their problems with a geographical location or the people who live there.
It's not.
No. And it's kind of the same thing with not your troubles, but just your perception.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you the perfect example. Like I said, I left Ohio in 2001, and I moved to the one place everybody in the Midwest wants to go, California. So I'm living in Long Beach, California, and I'm working with cats who grew up in L.A., and they would complain about how boring L.A. is. Oh, California sucks, man. This place sucks. I wish I could get out of here. And once again, I also grew up in Kentucky, so I'd spend my summers in Kentucky. I would spend my school year in Ohio, and then I moved down here to Florida. And Florida's the second destination that everybody who lives in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana want to go to. And finding people down here who grew up here, oh, Florida sucks, this town sucks. And I realized no matter where you were at, the town that you were born and raised in, even if it's LA in California or down here in Florida, every place sucks to somebody. And it's not the place, it's the person and what they're willing to do with that place and the experiences they're willing to have. And so kind of with that same modality, you're thinking, okay, well, all my problems clearly here in Fort Myers. Fort Myers has been nothing but bad to me, so I'm going to hit the road. But your problems are psychological. Your quote I kind of came up with, I like to use, is your soul's being the pack mule for your demons. And so you got your demons and your pack mules in your back seat. And who's the best passenger? Loneliness.
Yep.
And so now you're hitting the open road. You're alone. You got your demons in the back seat, feeding the donkey. And what do you do next?
Continue to search.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing, just searching.
Now, when you got to a new town, would you try to find a church?
Always.
Always trying to find a festival, something?
Something going on. Yeah, something where I can communicate with people and get together with people and share my story. Now,
was that in itself mind-opening, or did you find some churches were receptive to somebody who's walking in and some of them were not so receptive? How did that open your eyes or close your eyes?
Okay, so like I was barefoot everywhere too. So you got this guy at the time. I had my beard.
Yep.
My big
Grizzly
beard,
Adams.
Grizzly
beard.
Adams. You know, long hair.
Tattoos.
You know,
barefoot.
And I got a lot of looks, but I had my Jesus shirts on. I had my hats on, and I didn't care what people thought because my whole life I cared way too much.
Sure.
And that was it. You know, I got a lot of questions. What I was doing, why I was doing it.
What are you running from?
What was I running from? What are you searching for? It was eye-opening.
Did you ever find what you're looking for?
Oh yeah.
The road back home?
Road back home.
So here you are.
Back here.
Now, I opened up the shows talking about I was trying to figure out who to book for my first episode. And I mentioned a Facebook post. And you probably don't have it memorized, but do you vaguely remember the Facebook post that you posted that led me to reach out to you for doing this first episode?
A little bit.
What was it?
About the teachers telling me how stupid I was and that I would never amount to anything and I would never do anything with my life.
Law enforcement?
Law enforcement, getting in fights with law enforcement.
But what was the main point of that post? What recent successes did you accomplish?
I got my AA. Completely sober, and I'm back in school, but I just finished the hardest course of the program of my degrees in sports medicine and fitness technology.
Because you've always had the athleticism.
Yeah.
You've always kind of been into fitness. I'm sure once you went through basic training in the military, the fitness came easier to you.
Yeah.
You've always been kind of fit, and you had a passion for it. I mean, look, you're still yoked right now. And that's the other thing I really didn't get into is one of the things I'm guilty of, and you do as well, you not so much as me, is I annoy the hell out of people online with Facebook check-ins when I go to the gym. And I know you're constantly working out. Now, for a while, you actually had a cool thing going. You were getting like-minded Christians together, and you guys were running downtown and working out. Are you guys still doing that?
So I was doing a boot camp, a free boot camp class downtown in the park, and it was actually I had people that weren't even Christian coming, and I'd start off with a little just devotional, like an encouraging just a little 15-minute encouragement, and then we start the workout. Not doing it now just because school's been so crazy.
Sure.
But now my school days are back down to 2 days a week, so I'm actually getting ready to open up my own gym.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where are you going to do that, in Fort Myers or the Cape?
I'm thinking downtown.
Okay.
There's a building.
You also have a loose affiliation with a shop downtown that I drive by often. Has something to do with skateboards and brewery? No, coffee.
Coffee, yep.
What's that place?
The House of Rye Nature.
Okay, what goes on there?
It's a Christian nonprofit organization. They serve coffee. They have events down there, live music. They have a little half pipe in the backyard.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden a half pipe in 20 years.
Oh, it's a little mini pipe.
So, I don't care. I'll go in there and do some fakies and some Smith grinds on it.
There you go.
Let's go.
They teach kids, but they do mission trips across the world.
Mm-hmm.
They take skateboards, and
Nice.
they bring skateboards and surfboards and skim boards, boogie boards, and they give those gifts away to share
And
the gospel.
surfboards are not a cheap gift.
No, they're not.
Surfboards are expensive because when I lived in California, growing up in Ohio and Kentucky, like I said, I started skateboarding in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
But being a hillbilly and a flatlander, one of my passions was always to go to California and surf. And so when I went out to Long Beach, I found a guy who worked with my father who had a plethora of surfboards because he was in his 50s and he had spent his life teaching people how to surf. And so he'd walk through his apartment, it was like a surf museum. And so he took me out to Malibu. I went surfing out there like 2 or 3 times, Huntington Beach, all over. And so I finally got to accomplish my dreams of surfing. And I got to the point where I was going to purchase a wetsuit, was going to go to get my first board. And then that's when my dad told me, hey, I'm retiring and moving to Florida. You have 2 choices. You can stay here or you can come with me. Well, at the time, this is back in 2003, and it hasn't changed. It's even worse now. But cost of living in California is insane. A single bedroom apartment, and keep in mind this is 18 years ago, in the bad side of town was $1,100 a month. That's for a studio apartment. Insurance is insane. And so I knew at that time, working a job making $10 an hour, just finishing up my computer school, that there was no way in hell that I could afford to live in California. And so now I knew my surfing dream was gone. But more importantly, I also spent 20 years snowboarding. And there's absolutely no snowboarding in Florida. So I knew surfing was going to go away and snowboarding was going to go away. And so a friend of mine, I worked in La Harbor at the time, and we would drive 45 minutes at Friday nights and we would go snowboarding. I went snowboarding like 28 times within 2 months before I moved down here to Florida in '04, and I haven't ridden since. My snowboard's sitting out in my garage, and just basically, I know you can go surfing up in Cocoa Beach, but I just, I'm too damn busy.
Full drive too.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, full of like 3 hours, Cocoa
Yeah.
Beach.
So you guys, they do mission trips, and they find a way to get kids' attention with the skateboarding, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which that's nice now too, because back when I was doing it back in the day, especially up in Ohio, I'm not sure how it was down here in Florida. Skateboarding was not a welcomed sport. X Games didn't exist.
Yep.
Tony Hawk was still a kid. You didn't have Rob Dyrdek. And so the only place you saw skateboarding was on the occasional commercial, but we were treated almost like street gangs. I mean, we were constantly ran out of places. It got to the point where people were making bumper stickers saying skateboarding is not a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, snowboarding was not welcome either. We were looked at as the gangs of the ski. When I started snowboarding in '94, and you found some of the hills in Ohio that actually allowed them, because a lot of places did not allow snowboarding, you would see like 6 of us. And all the rest were skiers. And they'd come and they'd ride over your top sheet and damage your board. Nowadays, you go out, there's maybe 4 skiers on the whole damn. It's completely flip-flopped. It's gone the whole other direction. But back then, we were frowned upon for skateboarding and snowboarding. But it's so nice now that, because our generation's gotten older, that everything's changed, and people who were in the marketing and all that, and with especially the X Games, Rod Dyrdek and all that stuff, skateboarding has become more socially acceptable, and it's kind of cool that they have found a way, especially to have a half pipe on their property. I mean, I'm sure that alone brings some kids in who wouldn't otherwise be interested. So now, despite your growing up, despite your rough childhood, despite your pill problems in the military, being homeless twice, looking at 7 years in prison, how long have you been sober now?
From the pills, since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
From the alcohol, last time I drank was a couple months ago, and that was a rough time.
Sure.
I still struggle. Marijuana, I've been struggling with that, but I've been sober from that for 3 days.
Yep.
But before that, it was 4 days, and that's been a 20-year addiction for me.
Well, how is that? Is it easier to justify that now with the mass acceptance of weed smoking?
Oh yeah, it's definitely easy to accept it, and to
now that more and more states.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny because when you talk, you kind of get into that sober mode where you refer to it as marijuana.
Yeah.
Which most people only do when they don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But now, especially now that you have medical down here legal in Florida, they're trying to get recreational done.
Yep.
My brother lives in Vegas. Recreation's just been passed there.
Yep.
So I guess as long as it doesn't have a negative impact on you, not only spiritually, health-wise, but in your daily life and achieving your goals, would you still consider that a problem?
I would, only because the Bible tells us to be sober-minded, and for me, even one hit, I'm not sober. Like,
sure.
I would smoke and go to the gym and work out and get amazing workouts.
Yeah, because you're not focusing on all the other stuff you have to get done that day.
Exactly.
You're focusing on your workout.
That's it. So, and I'd smoke and go to school and sit there and actually listen to what they're saying, take notes, and like do my schoolwork. But I don't want to, for me personally, I don't want to take anything that is going to affect my cognitive thinking.
So and plus your spiritual side is struggling with your physical side, because you know it doesn't affect you physically, because once again you can go to the gym for an hour and a half and bust out a good workout because you're not focusing on it and everything else you have to do, but spiritually you still have that conflict battling inside you.
Exactly.
But if you had to sit down and you're looking at somebody who's young, they've made some bad choices and they're kind of in the mindset you were, where F it, let's just drink and party until we're dead, what advice would you give them, or what would you say to them using your past experience and the positivity? And, because everybody struggles. I mean, in order to live, you got to learn every day. You got to work every day, and you got to try to conquer your demons every day. I would definitely say you've come a long way, and none of us are perfect. But with that being said, you're trying to take all the negatives that you've experienced in your life and turn it to a positive, to have somewhat of a positive impact on other people. So if you ran into, your modern day self and you ran into your past self or someone like you, what sort of advice would you give to them as far as obtaining their goals, or realizing, yes, life's hard and life sucks, but it's not that bad?
That's a good question. Not to beat yourself up when you mess up. We all mess up, but it's what you do when you mess up. It says the righteous fall 77 times, but you get back up.
Well, because if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yeah.
And getting out of your comfort zone is one of the most key important things to improving your life. I mean, if you only do the things you're comfortable with, you're essentially going to live in a rut.
That's it.
Now, I'm not saying go out and do negative stuff, but for example, if you want to do open mic, but you're scared of getting on stages, go do it.
That's it. Fight past that fear.
Yeah. If you like MMA, but you're afraid to get punched in the face, it may not be the sport for you, but you could go down to a local gym and learn how to protect yourself and train and see what it's like. You just got to go out and get it. Don't let the one thing I would say, because we've all been there, we've all had bad childhoods, and we kind of hinted to it at the beginning, is don't let your past be an excuse, and surely don't allow it to define your future. And definitely don't allow the thoughts and opinions of other people, even if they are persons of authority, to tell you you can't do something, or you don't have the skills to do something if it's something you truly want to do. Go out and chase those dreams.
Yep.
If you fail, as you said, it's not the failing, it's what you do next. Do you sit around and kick yourself in the ass and just give up and slide back down your rut, or do you keep on trucking?
It's a learning opportunity. You learned a way not to do it. Now you find the right way to do it.
And the key thing about failing and about messing up is admitting that you failed, admitting you messed up, learning from it, and not doing it again.
Yep.
Especially with the younger generation, you see a lot of cats who don't want to admit, even if it's something super minor. You could be working at McDonald's and they said they changed the old grease trap yesterday and they didn't, and now all the fries are super dark and they taste like ass. Just take it on the chin. I messed up, my bad, I'll go do it right now. Let's get some new grease in there, get some golden fries out, and move on with your life.
Yeah, it's okay to admit that you messed up.
I think it's important.
It is.
It's not just okay, it's vital to your existence and to your transformation in life. You have to admit when you mess up and learn from it and move on.
That's what I had to do. I had to admit that I didn't know what I thought I knew. I had to admit that I messed up over and over and over again and learned a new way to do it.
When do you think, when's your school finally wrapping up? When are you going to get your you said you're taking your master's now too?
Bachelor's.
Your bachelor's.
Yeah. I'll have my bachelor's next July.
Nice.
Yep. And then right now the goal is I'm going to open a nonprofit gym
okay.
that trains people spiritually and physically.
Sure.
You know, I don't want to just worry about the physical part of our body, but I want to worry about eternity as well.
Now, the term nonprofit is a little misgiving because people think nonprofit means 100% free. It's nonprofit as in it doesn't generate a profit, but it still has to generate enough revenue to pay for its overhead. And so, obviously, you're going to have to create some sort of at least minimalistic gym membership, right? I mean, how are you going to finance it?
I'm relying completely on God. I don't want to charge anybody. I want this to be a completely open door. You can come in, no worries, no payment, no nothing.
So you're going to do fundraisers and donations?
Fundraisers, donations, and just completely trust that He's going to provide everything that I need.
That in itself is a huge leap of faith.
It is.
Especially with the price of rent and commercial space down here.
Definitely. But I know that I'm here for a reason.
Okay.
I should still be in prison for 3 years.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years.
Yep.
It's taken you 5 years to get here, and you've come a hell of a long way. I would say you're successful, at least compared to where you were.
Yeah.
I mean, success is a relative term. Some people look at success based on money and financial status, and some people look at based on happiness and your position in life, and where you are now in contrast to where you were then.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say you've definitely come a hell of a long way, and I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
And I think you're a huge motivational force, and someone to reach out to if you're looking for guidance and you're in the same predicament, and you're looking for someone to share your faith with.
Thank you.
Just want to congratulate you on that. Thank you all for hanging out with us for the first episode of Failed to Fail, where we talk to people who've come a long way in their journeys to find success in life. And joining us today was Mike Frenchko. He's been down one hell of a path, but I see good things going for him. And I hope your gym works out to succeed all your aspirations and then some. And hope you help change some people's lives.
Thank you. And I just want to say Luke 1:27 says, with God, all things are possible.
And I think you're living by that, and you're proving it. Keep it up, man. Stay sober.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your future diploma.
Appreciate it.
Did you ever think when you're 8 years ago that you would ever be here?
Heck no, man.
Where did you see yourself back then?
Bro, I got kicked out of 4 elementary schools. I got kicked out of 3 middle schools. I got kicked out of 3 high schools. I thought that I would never make 20. I didn't think that I'd make 20. 8 years of heroin, no way. I'll be 32 tomorrow. I did not think that.
Well, happy birthday. Here's to living a good life. And here's the 8 years of heroin without picking up any STDs or AIDS.
I had hepatitis C, but I got completely healed.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you pull that one off?
I have no idea. We've got miracles.
I guess, man. Well, happy birthday, and stay on the straight and narrow, and I'll be seeing you around town.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you want to find some more information on this podcast and the other podcast I do, please check out d-410.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.